Good morning. Okay, so it's been a little while that since I've done like a think aloud, broad topic kind of what's on my mind video. So I was just so into my painting videos that I kind of forgot. So here's my cup of tea. All right, I'm getting everything ready for the holidays coming up, and everybody has feelings around the holidays, right? And for some people, the holidays are difficult. So I have a difficult relationship in my life with my father, and we're not in contact. And I think it's been 25 years since we've spoken or seen each other. And I'm 51, so half my life. And a previous, like 2 years ago, I was doing a series of family portraits, and my feelings for my father really woke up. The pain and the separation feelings of my inner child who lost him really early on. So there was a big event in our lives when I was about 3 years old, 3 going on 4, where he was incarcerated. He went to jail. And it was like a death for me at that age. Just being away from him was very painful. It took me days to remember when the feeling of missing him came up. It had been coming up over and over again during those few days, but at some point that feeling came up, and I had the intention of, next time this feeling hits me, I've got to go tell my mom, right? Because that's the kind of kid I was. I would feel things and then I would feel them again, and then I would be like, okay, this is something that I need to go get help about, and then I'd go ask my mom. So I tell her, I went and I asked her, like, where is he? You know? So that tells me, and she agrees, like, yeah, it took you a few days to even notice he was gone. And I'm like, oh, I noticed, but I didn't know how to talk about it. And so that just became a fact of my life. Like, up until that day, he was there all the time. And then after that day, he was never there. And I didn't see him for months, I think. And then we started visiting when things settled down, and visiting regularly. And I hated it. I hated visiting him in jail. It was boring. He was angry and upset, and well, I mean, he was himself, right? So while I could be distracted from who he was when I was in my own home, I couldn't be distracted from who he was when he was in the waiting family visiting area of the jail, right? So that was my first trauma. I mean, I probably had others, but that was the big one. That was the big one. And then right after that, okay, hold on a sec. I'm not going to get into the whole story, but being separated from him was especially difficult because he had spent a few months being my daytime caregiver while my mom went to work, when I was an infant, like 1-year-old. And then I went to daycare during the day. But when he was my daycare caregiver, like daytime caregiver, you know, we developed a close bond, even though his caregiving was inadequate and neglectful. Infants don't care. They're just like, yay, you're here now, you know? And I have a very long and deep memory, and I loved my dad tremendously, and I couldn't bear to be apart from him. I really, really couldn't. And Talking about it brings up those feelings, right? So around Christmas time is pretty awful to, I have so many stories of how he failed me around Christmas time, especially because now that I understand him as an adult, I look back and I realize that he was a young dad. He was very much the hero of his own story, very much narcissistic, even if he's not diagnosable or anything, although I believe he is. It's complex, and who cares really but me, right? So he wasn't a perfect person in any way. And he had some big problems, like drug addiction was his biggest problem. But what leads to drug addiction is, his own early trauma. And he has his own story, and I've told it before, but it's mind-blowing what he went through growing up. Secrets kept about his identity. So then, of course, as a young man, becoming a father himself, not knowing who his own father was, his own identity issues, all of those things took over, and he just made all the wrong choices. And he was a drug addict, so he ended up finally in that life, it's death, jail, or recovery. Those are the outcomes, right? And so he's not dead. He's done jail a few times. I don't think he's ever really tried recovery, although honestly, I don't know anything about the last 25 years. So I could be wrong. And so this is what brings me to this Christmas. This Christmas, I have my own memories of Christmas where I desperately wanted to be part of the family. And yet, since he was that black sheep and he wasn't welcome, and I was his daughter, it was kind of like, you can't really bring her without me, so she doesn't go either. So it was always about who's going to spend Christmas with him so that he's not lonely, etc., etc. But what would end up happening is he'd go out drinking and I would be the one alone. And it happened more than once. And it's agonizing. It was very painful. Those moments were so painful. And they taught me perhaps wrongly that I was not really that important to him. Although I do feel like that's true. It's just a terrible truth to learn when you're 10. And the 10-year-old inside me is really upset still upset. Those early traumas don't go anywhere, that I loved him so much and he left me to go to jail because he couldn't live a righteous life because, you're supposed to be an adult when you have children and you're supposed to make sure that you're living life so that you don't die or go to jail. Like, it's a basic thing, when you're a parent, you have to grow up and stop it. And he did not. All right, so that's it. Those are my feelings right now. I'm repressing them. I'm juggling them. I'm crying a little bit. Don't really know where to put them, because they're old. It's old news. It's the past. It's all of those things. But years and years of ignoring them just hasn't made them go away either, just because I don't think that that's how it works, right? Okay. It does feel good to get it off my chest, and I guess today was the day to do it. So thank you for listening, and I am okay. I am okay, and I'm enjoying Christmas, and I was wrapping presents like a week before. So that makes me feel like I'm on the ball and I'm being the adult, and I'm I'm not shirking my responsibilities. I'm being a parent. I'm making sure it's going to be nice for everybody, Yeah. So but I'm doing it. I'm doing it because of the kid that I was, who was so anxious because nothing happened before Christmas Eve, and Christmas Eve was lonely because he had to run out and do all the things, you know. There's a Christmas story about, I forget, Peanuts gang, Charlie Brown, with a miserable little Christmas tree, you know, that he gets at the last minute. Those stories come from truth for some people. And so I remember those times, and I don't want my children to feel that. Anxiety, anticipation, and uncertainty. Okay, so it's not because of materialism. It's because I'm protecting them, that I'm wrapping presents in advance and considering, even now that they are older, putting them around the tree so that they can see that it's all done. Maybe they don't need that. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me that needed it. All right. So, okay, I'm going to stop now. Thank you for listening. And I do appreciate it, especially when I see those views going up and I'm like, oh, people are listening. Merry Christmas.